So today we're going to look at graphing lines using a table. Some of our examples will start out having a table already created for us. Some of them we're going to have to create the table. But first let's start with ones where we're given a table. Remember, on your coordinate plane, the x-axis is the horizontal, and positive x's are on the right, negative x's are on the left. The y-axis is this vertical axis. Positive y's are on the top, negative y's are on the bottom. So when we graph our points, this -2 says we go -2 on the x and then +8 on the y. And we put a dot. -1, 4, we go left 1 and then up 4 and put a dot. +1, that's going to the right, and then -4 goes down 4, and we put a dot. And last we have 2, -8. Now, because we're graphing lines, when you look at where those dots are, they should look like they're in a straight line. If they're not, that tells you you've graphed at least one of your points wrong. So mine look like they're in a straight line, so then we go ahead and we connect them. You can use a ruler if you've got one handy. I'm just going to freehand it. And then we put our little arrows at the end saying that our line goes on forever. So that's our first example. Now, I'm going to graph another one. I'm going to leave this one up there. Well, we'll erase it. So we'll graph one more just so you can see another one. This one is going to have some different points. So I'm going to change the points in my table. I have the points -5, -5, -3, -3, -2, -2, and +3, +3. So we've got another one to graph. So once again, negative x's go backwards to the left. Negative y's go down 5. I don't have actual lines drawn on here, so I'm just freehanding it a little bit, and that's okay. If you have graph paper, even better. -3 is backwards, -3 is down. -2, -2, and then we've got positive, so we're going to the right and up this time. So right 3, up 3, and we can see they look like they're in a straight line, so we should have graphed them correctly. Now we connect the dots with as straight of a line as you can draw, and put the arrows on the ends. So that's how we go about and graph when we're already given a table. If you want, now is a good time to pause the video and do the first part of the worksheet. The front, that's got ones just like this. You'll have to graph a few. They've already given you the table. If you can print the worksheet, you can have the graph paper right there, or you can do it on separate paper. Now, the second half of what we're doing is graphing when you don't have a table, or at least not a complete table. You've got an equation. So this time, we're going to graph the equation y equals -1/3 x minus 1. Now, you'll be given x values to use. Your job is to figure out what y's go along with that so that you've got that completed table to graph. So we're going to set up a table with our x's on the left. Then we leave a bunch of space in the middle so we have room to do some calculation work, practice that order of operations, PEMDAS. That's where our equation goes. And then our last column are the actual points, the x, y's, that we're going to use. So for this problem, we're going to give you 3 x's. You're going to use -3, 0, and 3. Okay? So for -3, what you are doing is you are literally taking whatever is in the x column and putting it in for that x in the equation. So for the first one, I'd have y equals -1/3 times -3 minus 1. So we just plugged it into the equation. That's our first step. Well, now, order of operations, we have to do the multiplying. So negative times negative is going to make that a positive. 1/3 times 3 is just 1. So this first part became a 1. We still have the minus 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. Now, where we get our points from, the x comes from the x column. So I'll write that down, -3. And the y, well, we just calculated that in the middle. So our y we found was 0, so that's our first point, -3, 0. Okay, we're going to move on to calculating with 0. So y equals -1/3 times 0. Remember, we're plugging this number into the x in our equation, and then writing the rest of the equation down. So -1/3 times 0, anything times 0 is 0, so that's just 0. And we still have our minus 1. 0 minus 1 is -1. Remember, the x we used was 0, and the y we found was -1. So our point is 0, -1. For the last point, we're going to use a 3 for our x. So y equals -1/3 times 3 minus 1. Well, negative times positive is a negative, so we know we're going to have a negative number there. 1/3 times 3 is 1. And then we still have that minus 1. Well, -1 minus 1 is -2. So our point, well, the x was 3. The y we calculated was -2. There's our 3 points. Now, when you eventually will get to pick your own x's, you still got to have at least 3. That way, if you made a mistake or you graphed something wrong, you can catch your mistake. So for this worksheet, you're going to be given 3 x's to calculate with. That way, if you happen to graph something incorrectly or calculate incorrectly, you should be able to catch that mistake. So let's make a graph so we can graph these. Remember, x is the horizontal, y is the vertical. I'm just going to go out 5 because none of my numbers are bigger than 5. And now we start to plot those points. So -3, 0, that one's right there. 0, -1 is right there. And 3, -2 is right there. They look like they're in a straight line, so that tells us we've more than likely done it correctly, and we have. So now we can connect those with a straight line, put our arrows on the end, and we have graphed our equation using a table. Now you can go ahead, finish that worksheet, and then if you want to, go ahead and work on the quizzes, work on Khan Academy practice as well if you've got nothing else to do. So lots of options. Good luck. Let us know if you have any questions.